coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast, ripping up everything off that. Back to back is not.
What is going on, everybody? We are back at it once again tonight on Monday. Back on the Fantasy Coaches here. Coach C with you guys. Of course, we have another episode for you guys tonight. So if you weren't listening at our earlier show, we are going over the NFL draft. Reaction, fantasy action, whatever you want to call it here. We just did the quarterback and wide receivers earlier. So if you're listening on our YouTube channel, go back and check that out. But for now, we are going to be talking about the running backs and the tight ends, of course. Coach Tyler's back on the show. What's going on, Coach Tyler?
What's up, guys? Yeah, had a little dinner break, and now we're ready to get back at it.
That's exactly what I did, to be honest, too. So, yeah, we're going to get right into it. We went over everything that we could think of already possible today. So we're going to get right into the action here, starting off with the running back position here. And if you weren't listening on our previous show, essentially, we're just going to go through each round or so and then talk about it, fantasy reaction, and whatever have you. So starting here at the top, starting with the running backs. First overall, Ashton Jeanty went 6th overall to the Las Vegas Raider, a spot that has been mocked for him for so many weeks now. It is official. Jeanty is a Raider. So, Coach Tyler, how high is Jeanty for you now, and do you think he will be super successful?
Yeah, I said it. If you get back to the last episode, I think I dropped it in there. Jeanty's a top 5 back in Dynasty now. And I say that with no qualms about it, right? You just watch Jeanty, and he's really a complete back. The speed could be a little higher, but if that's where you're going to knock him for being a 10th or 2/10 of a second behind someone, it's okay. But he is one of those prospects that you look at, and he is a little bit undersized when you look at him, but he is just stout in his build, right? He's 5'8.5", 211. So, the biggest draft comparison, the biggest player comparison for him has been an Emmitt Smith, right? Just this smaller built guy that, just runs over people. But he shows, you look back at a couple years ago, he showed a lot more in terms of his hands and being able to make plays in the passing game. He's able to hold his ground in size, or he's able to use his size to hold his ground in pass pro. He just bounces off of really any tackler. It's hard to go watch his film and see him tackled by the first person to make an attempt ever. And so I have him at least top 5 right now. I could very much be convinced, and I've seen a lot of rankings where he immediately slots in as a top 3 guy behind Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs, and I really don't feel any kind of way about that, right? I don't feel any kind of bad way about that. Carroll's going to run him into the ground like he has every other running back he's ever had. They invested a top 6 pick into a running back. That's not extremely common these days. So I think they're going to get their usage out of him. The offense is 100% going to flow through him, partially because it's a Pete Carroll offense and it always flows through the running back, and partially because outside of Brock Bowers, there's not really any other playmakers out there. So it's going to have to go through Jeanty.
Yeah, there's not much more to say about that. Jeanty is the clear 101 in all rookie drafts right now. It's pretty obvious. We've seen rookie running backs over the years, especially being taken in the early rounds of fantasy football NFL draft, that they translate and are very successful at the NFL level here. And Jeanty will be another one of those cases that if you draft him 101 overall, which you should, you should not have any regrets on that. So Jeanty is a Raider. Moving on to the second running back that was taken in round 1 was Omarion Hampton, who I think everyone pretty much was like, the Denver Broncos made so much sense. Well, they didn't go Hampton, but he stayed in the AFC West and was drafted 22 overall by the Los Angeles Chargers. Hampton will be now sharing a backfield with recent newcomer Najee Harris. So how do you feel about Hampton's value in year one? And do you like the spot with LA?
I really like the spot with LA, and I feel like his value isn't going to take a hit being a rookie going into this team, right? Obviously, we know how Jim Harbaugh wants to play his game, right? We saw that as they talked about drafting Joe Alt last year when they had a chance at, these outstanding receivers, this outstanding skill class that was there last year. He talked about you want to build the big guys up front and you want to run the ball. You establish the run. And the Chargers really didn't do a ton in free agency to affect their running back room, right? Didn't re-sign J.K. Dobbins, but they went out and got Najee Harris. And at face value, that might scare you off of someone like Amarian Hampton until you realize Najee Harris signed a $5.25 million 1-year deal. I think that was just a safety play in case the Chargers didn't get one of these top guys in the draft. But I really see Amarian Hampton. He has a 3-down workload or a 3-down work. Oh my gosh, words are hard today. 3-down set. There we go. And we saw him have a 3-down workload at North Carolina, right? So coming in the league, it's hard for me to believe anything about Leitberger.
Dude, I'm not really sure what you mean by that. If I care to explain a little bit more, I'm not sure.
Is that supposed to be Luther Burden?
Maybe Luther Burden.
But back to Hampton. He has that 3-down workload or that 3-down skill set. Oh my gosh. And he has a history of the 3-down workload. But you look at like J.K. Dobbins came in really on one leg this past season, kind of revived his career a little bit. 195 carries, 905 on the ground, and 9 touchdowns. I would be shocked if Amarian stat line to that. The Chargers' offensive front is built to run the ball. Harbaugh schemes everything to run the ball. They have weapons in the pass game now to take the boxes out of being extremely loaded towards their running backs. But I don't think Hampton falls a ton in terms of his rookie year production. I think Najee Harris is going to get some work. I don't think it's going to be solely Hampton's backfield. But I think having the 3-down skill set not only helps you in fantasy in terms of your PPR, but also the fact that means that there's no situation where he shouldn't be on the field. So if he needs a breather, he can get a breather with Najee Harris out there. But there's no critical situation that I don't see the Chargers having him out there. And, he's already slotting in as a top 8, top 10 dynasty running back. And that's exactly where I would put him too. I'm confident that in the scheme, at his age, with his skill set, there's no reason he shouldn't be extremely successful for your fantasy.
I completely agree with you. Oh, Jamie's back. What's going on, Jamie? Welcome back in, my friend. Vito said something. Still don't get it, Vito. So, continuing on here with Hampton. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Hampton, again, I wish he would have landed in a situation where it was like no thoughts about it. But, LA long-term is going to be a great spot for him. They're building that strong offensive line. They have great pieces on that offensive line. And if anything, I think worst case, you could see what we saw a couple of years ago from Javonte Williams. And who's the other running back that played with Javonte that one season in Denver? They split the work like completely down the middle.
That's too late for like Monty Ball. I'll do some research.
All right. So I think that's the floor you're getting to get from Hampton is that guy who's going to probably split everything down the middle with Harris, because why bring Harris? I mean, you know why you bring Harris in, but why overwork Hampton his first year? Harris has enough juice in him to be able to do work in this offense with LA as well. And it keeps Hampton a little bit more fresh for a long-term outlook for his career. So I think Hampton right now, top 4 pick in rookie drafts, and he should be there. And you can consider him as the number 2 pick in this draft because the upside that he's going to offer you long-term is something that you want to have in fantasy football. And it comes out really, really great. So moving on to our next round here, we have some running backs into round 2. I just want to make sure if I missed anyone else here. Oh, okay. So just 3 running backs in round 2, and I just double check. Quinshawn Jenkins, went 36 overall to the Cleveland Browns. Trayvon Henderson, I think this was a bit of a shocker for a lot of people, went also in round 2 to the New England Patriots. And then the Denver Broncos decided we wanted to get our running back, and they went with R.J. Harvey. Again, another surprisingly surprise pick for what I think a lot of people had for Denver in this draft. So, Coach Tyler, talk about all three and which one do you prefer in which order?
Yeah. For dynasty reasons, first off, according to my research, I don't know why we couldn't think of Melvin Gordon, Wisconsin legend.
Melvin Gordon. Oh my God.
203 to 203 carries. But yeah, back to our round 2 guys. For dynasty purposes, I want Trevion Henderson at the top. Obviously, he walks into the situation with Ramondre Stevenson, but that's more name value above everything. Because if you remember, Ramondre Stevenson couldn't beat out Antonio Gibson last year. So how is he going to beat out the young buck? But also, when we talked about Trevion Henderson, we looked at the fact that he is most successful and especially most healthy when he is not, the workhorse back, right? We looked at, I think it was 7.1 yards a carry last year, and he was splitting time with his teammate who got picked by the Browns, Quinshon Judkins, right? But if I'm getting 60, 70% of the carries and I'm getting 7.1 a yard or 7.1 a carry, sign me up for that all the way. I think New England is better built for the future. Obviously, they could use some room in that receiver, or they could use some help in that receiver room. But the offensive line has been built up through the offseason, through the draft. And, like we talked about, they have their franchise quarterback in Drake May. So I think long-term, I look to Henderson to be the guy. In the short term, and number 2 for me in terms of dynasty is Quinshon Judkins. Cleveland, just kind of like we talked about in the quarterback section, there's not a whole lot going on in that offense. There's not a lot of clarity, not a lot of success. We'll see who the starting quarterback is. But Judkins walks into a team where he has a fairly good offensive line, and he has Jerome Ford to compete with carries with. Maybe the Browns bring Chubb back on just like a, hey, our franchise loves you, and so we want you to be here type thing. But you don't draft a running back at 36 overall if you're not going to use him. Jerome Ford has been serviceable the past few years, but I think Judkins has a chance to walk in and be, RB1 on the depth chart week 1. So if you're, a contending team that has a high pick and you need running back help, I like Judkins there, but in my dynasty rankings, he falls at 2. And then R.J. Harvey at 3. The Harvey pick surprised a lot of people. Obviously, we wanted, like Coach Steve said, everyone dreamed of Amarion Hampton going to a Sean Payton offense with the Broncos. But they decided to pass on him, and they ended up with R.J. Harvey in the second. He produced in college. I think I like R.J. Harvey more for the fact that he is in a Sean Payton offense than I do the actual player. But, at some point, the draft capital and the scheme speaks to you a little bit. I have him as my 6 right now. I have one guy that we're going to talk about in a minute above him, just based on, personal preference and skill sets. But if I'm looking at my round 2 backs, Henderson and Judkins should be top 5 picks. If you're in Superflex, they should be top 4s if you're in 1 QB. But my ranking, at least for dynasty purposes, I go Henderson, Judkins, Harvey on them.
I like it. Yeah. I'm close to that. I mean, Harvey is my last guy there. Again, I was a little confused by the pick with Denver going that direction there. Obviously, I really thought Harvey is really much more of a 2-down back. I don't really think he has. Personally, I don't feel like he has the complete skill set to be a true 3-down back for this Broncos offense. We'll have to see kind of how he's used. Obviously, he got great capital, so you have to assume that he's going to take in the workload, and then probably Jaleel McLaughlin. There's probably going to be more of the downs back, more than likely here. Harvey, again, I have him as a late. He kind of comes in as a late first round, early second round pick there, and it's kind of fine. So I think it's kind of a risky, boom or bust kind of pick there. It could turn out really well, it could turn out really bad. Not to just kind of be so cliche about it, but that's kind of how I feel about Harvey, very boom or bust player if you're going to go after him. Henderson is my next guy in terms of second. I just feel like Henderson's going to probably be worked in more as the season goes on. I don't think you're going to have early on success with him. It really just depends on who's on the roster come opening day there. If Antonio Gibson is still sitting there with Henderson, I think there's going to be a little bit of competition there. I think all three of those running backs have the ability to pass catch. But Henderson, again, long term, I think he's got a great opportunity with this Patriots team here. They're really trying to rebuild this team from the ground up. And they're a team that has a history of knowing how to run the football very well under Mike Vrabel. So Henderson is a guy that I like. He's probably a mid to late round one pick. He's kind of fluctuates a little bit there. And then Jenkins is my number one guy. Oh, Jenkins. Junkins, right? Junkins. Yeah, Junkins. He's my number one guy because I feel like the upside he's able to offer. And again, yes, something else happened where another running back was drafted very high, and we'll talk about that in a few. A guy I do like. But Judkins is a guy who kind of brings you that, I think, Nick Chubb vibe where he can kind of just ground and pound. And I think the Cleveland Browns want to get back to that kind of just ground and pound, something they really haven't had the last 2 years without Nick Chubb being there or / being healthy. And I think Judkins can really do that for you. Despite it not being a great team, they're going to want to try to run the ball as much as possible still, especially with their quarterback situation at hand. And I think he's got that goal line work almost clearly wrapped up even before day one starts. So I like him a lot. I have him, again, another mid to late first round pick. That's what he's going right now in rookie draft. So, all right, moving on to round 3. It was just one guy, Caleb Johnson. A guy who I had as my RB2 in this class here goes into round 3 to the Pittsburgh Steelers in a landing spot that I absolutely love. But Coach Tyler, how do you feel about Johnson?
Yeah, I love Johnson. I think I had him as my 5 going into the draft. He's still at my 5, just based on draft capital and everything. But he's the guy I put above Harvey, right? He's someone that I liked more than Harvey going into the draft. And it's maybe not as open of a backfield as Harvey has, but it's really just Jaylen Warren back there, right? And it's the Steelers have these small backs back there, right? They have Jaylen Warren. They have Kenneth Gainwell. They have Cordy P. They need a big guy. And Caleb Johnson is a workhorse type back who plays well in the zone scheme. If you go back and watch the Steelers press conference today, listening to Mike Tomlin talk about Caleb Johnson, right? He's talking a lot about how he was playing in a pro style offense and he was going against loaded boxes because Iowa was garbage and couldn't throw the ball to save their lives. So it's not like he is just not able to produce. You look how he's producing in a Big Ten offense that can't throw the ball as basically the sole running back. He was putting on a show, and that's why people loved him. And I think that he fits the Steelers' offense and the Steelers' mentality very well. I think Jaylen Warren is going to get a little bit more work than he did whenever Najee Harris was there, but I think that his role is still going to predominantly be that third down, that pass catcher role. And I think Caleb Johnson takes those first 2 downs. And I think that is going to be something that he is very capable of. I think it's something that he can be very successful in. So I had him as my 5 going in. He stays at my 5 based on draft capital and landing spots. But he's also a player that I'm targeting above a lot of guys.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think Johnson has that skill set to be a true 3-down back, and I think he has the talent to overtake Jaylen Warren, whether or not you like Jaylen Warren or not. So Johnson just lands in a really good situation. Again, round 3, still really strong draft capital for a running back there. And this is a team that, again, I think you could make the case to put him higher up on boards because if the Steelers are at least competitive, they're going to continue to play defense and run the football. And whether or not whatever quarterback they set, if they go with the young guys and try to just run the ball or just, Mason Rudolph, or even if Aaron Rodgers comes to town, they're still going to want a strong run game. And I think Johnson can help that really well. He's pretty much a late first round pick in drafts. I think he's a pretty safe option for a contending team right now. That like I think I prefer him over Harvey. And again, I think you can make a case for him over guys like Henderson and Judkins strictly because of the landing spot and the outlook for 2025 for a contending team. Again, if you're the 1-7, 1-8 pick there, like, yeah, those are right now, those are Judkins and Henderson, but you can make that argument for Johnson just because of the opportunity he could give us in 2025. So moving on to our round 4 running backs, and I just got to double check to see. There's a bunch on this list here, so we're gonna go through a lot of them right now. So let's talk about these 4 here. Starting in round 4, you're gonna have to help me out here, Coach Tyler.
Bishal
Tootin, right? Bishon Tootin. All right, Bushan Tootin goes at 104 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Cam Scadaboo goes to the New York Giants at 105. Pick 114, Trevor Etienne. This was a surprise to me. Hence to Carolina, and Woody Marks goes to at 116 to the Houston Texans here. So out of these 4 running backs here, which do you prefer over who, Coach Tyler?
I'm a big Cam Scadabo guy, and so I like Scadabo. Obviously, the Giants are still trying to figure stuff out. They did, somewhat hit on Tyrone Tracy last year, still have Devin Singletary under contract. But if you watch Scadabo, right, you watch what he was at Arizona State. He was to Arizona State what Ashton Jeanty was to Boise State. All right. The entire offense ran through him. He was running the ball. He was passing the ball. I think he had a snap at some point. That was Tyler Warren. But Scadabo did basically everything for that offense. And you go back and you watch his tape, especially from the game against Texas, right? He was literally on the ground about to pass out because he was just carrying everyone and catching everything downfield. He was doing it all. And the Giants need anybody like that in that backfield that will just put the team on their back and do it all. I really like Scadabo. I like the fact that they would invest, even 4th round capital. If I remember right, I want to say Tyrone Tracy last year was a 5th rounder. Let me make sure of that. But even the 4th round draft capital, I'm not expecting him to blow the world away. Tyrone Tracy. He was 5th round.
5th round? Okay, that was a 6th round.
Yeah. Pick. So we're getting around higher than that. So obviously they weren't overly content with him being the only guy back there. So I like Scadabo. I like that he can really just take over a game. I don't think he does it immediately in New York, but I also wouldn't put it past him because he is one of those guys that you want to run through a wall for him, and he's going to run through any wall for you. One of the interesting picks that I really liked here was Woody Marks. Joe Mixon isn't getting any younger. And if you look back at the Texans' backfield, Joe Mixon had 52 targets last year. Daria Gumbawali had 28. Cam Akers had 7 in his short time there. Damian Pierce had 4. So there's a lot of targets that were falling into running backs' hands. And we know really what Woody Marks is, right? You go look at his stats. He was in a pass-happy air raid offense at Mississippi State, and that's where he thrived, was catching the ball, right? We're going to swing you out of the backfield. You're going to go make a play. He's able to go do stuff downfield. And so I think with Joe Mixon, a mixture of his age and a mixture of just the injuries that kind of hampered him last year, I think that they're going to take some of that off of his plate in terms of third down work and receiving game. And Woody Marks is shown to be efficient in that area. So I think that Woody Marks could walk in. I put him above Agumbawale. I put him above Damian Pierce. Cam Akers isn't on the team anymore. So I think that he could walk in and immediately be the third down back and take a little bit of that workload off of Mixon, which means when we look at the targets as a whole, there is the opportunity for a fairly efficient PPR running back being a third down back on a team that, likes to run the ball with Mixon, but is able to get running backs targets out of the backfield too.
Jamie with all the Scatterboo puns today. Just watching them all go down. I love it, Jamie. Yeah, he was a beast. He was a beast. He was a beast. That's for sure. Scatterboo, he absolutely was. 1,700 yards, 25 touchdowns. He was really good. That's for sure. All right, Lisa, you talked about Scatterboo. He's kind of going as a mid-round 2 pick there. Again, I see the upside. I see the red flags. There's things you like and things you don't like about him. It will just depend on how much workload he's going to get as a rookie to really determine his value. And I think it will determine how well Tyrone Tracy takes the next step in his development too, to see how much Scatterboo is going to take work away from Tracy in this offense here. Woody Mox, yes, I love Woody Mox, Coach Tyler. I know you're saying it because just not because you're a Texans fan, but Woody Mox has PPR value written all over it. We know Joe Mixon's history. He's getting older in age there, and Woody Mox is like a steal right now. I mean, he is basically a 4th-round pick in my ADP currently right now, and not because I have him there, is because that's where he's kind of landing in a lot of spots. And I'm starting to see myself taking him in round 3 because the upside he offers. He is a little bit an older back, but he offers a good upside for PPR leagues. So I like Woody Mox. Trevor Etienne, again, I didn't get this pick as much because of the amount of running backs they have on that roster there. I know someone had mentioned that Chuba Hubbard did get banged up at the end of the season there. He should be fine probably for week 1. Again, they have him. They have Rico. Trevor I don't see him getting a big enough workload to be overly relevant. He's a 4th-round pick that, for the most part, hasn't been picked up in too many rookie drafts yet. And as I'm heading into late round 3, so you kind of see what he looks like. He's probably going to be a round 4 pick, and he's going to be one of those gems if he can kind of break the mold and find himself a spot in this Panthers offense, which I just don't see it all the way through, especially if Jonathan Brooks comes back at any time this year. I'm not saying he's going to be automatic starter or anything, but Etienne is going to have a tough time getting his work in there despite the good capital. Tootin is really interesting. I know Tootin right now, he is going in that early round 3 value. People are talking about him as the next Bucky Irving, but I assure you that's probably likely not going to happen. But he's very fast and he's got tremendous upside. And early on, he could have a real easy chance to take work away from Tank Bigsby and kind of fill in that backup role behind Trevor Etienne there. So Tootin's a guy I do like in round 3. I think there's a lot of great value that he can offer a fantasy owner, even in year 1, because I think the way that this team is going to mix things up in Jacksonville, Tootin might have himself a really solid role. All right, over to next area here. All right, here we go. We have some more round 4 picks here. Jaquez Hunter, Dylan Sampson here. Between Hunter and Sampson, Coach Tyler, which one are you leaning towards more?
I kind of lean Sampson. Just like we talked about with the Browns backfield, it's not a ton to write home about. Right, Jerome Ford, serviceable, but you have the Browns go out and draft Quinshon Judkins, and then they turn around 2 rounds later and go draft another running back. Obviously, they saw something in Sampson. And Judkins honestly worked well in a tandem too. So I wouldn't be surprised if Dylan Sampson, speedy thumper, like change of pace guy, Cleveland could just be revitalizing that running back room, and I love every second of it. I think Sampson has the ability to get on the field and do some special things. And I like him above Hunter, especially behind, I keep waiting on Sean McVay to replace Kyron Williams. One of these years I'm going to be right about that. But I think Sean McVay watches the show and just wants me to be wrong all the time.
Jamie needs help. Do you go Golden or Trey Harris at the 2-6?
Golden.
Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden. There you go, Jay.
Even though he's wearing the number 22, which kind of screams bust in my eyes, the Packers drafted a first-round wide receiver for the first time since I think it was 2002. So it meant something to them to go get a wide receiver.
Said Burden is there too. What are these people who are drafting?
Garbage. Please put me in that league. I want to draft with y'all.
But okay, say Golden or Burden though, just for fun.
I go Golden too. Less genuine target competition, and again draft capital too.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm on the same page. I think I prefer Golden personally. All right. So yeah. I mean, Tyler. Yeah. I mean, these round 4 backs are really interesting. I think Hunter is being very overlooked. I haven't really seen him go in any rookie draft so far. Like I said, some of them are hitting into mid round 3, late round 3, and I haven't seen him go yet. So I think there's value for Hunter because Blake Corum, whether or not people agree that he got enough workload in his rookie year, didn't look good in what he was able to show us that much. And Hunter is definitely an interesting kind of running back there that something happens to Karen Williams, Hunter has an opportunity to kind of jump in and be a guy that comes in really early. And you're getting him cheap. That's the thing in rookie draft. You're getting Hunter cheap. Well, Samson is still kind of like a mid-3rd round pick right now. At least where is he at here? I'm trying to find him. He's like he's actually a late round 2 pick, to be honest. Like he's going relatively early. Like I like Samson pre-draft, but it's really hard for me to figure out what they're going to do with this offense, what they're going to do with this backfield. Is Jerome Ford going to be there for the year to kind of mess things up? Because if that's the case, Samson's rookie year is basically just a redshirt season you're spending high draft capital on. So I've been kind of avoiding Samson unless he falls in the 3rd round. I'll let someone else take that. And if I want to trade for Samson one day because I love his talent, I will. But right now, I'm kind of concerned about him going so early. I really wish he went somewhere else, anywhere else. He went to LA, I'd be snagging him in early round 2 because of the talent that he offers. But he goes into Cleveland when they already drafted a high running back. They already have another running back, and they don't really have a strong offense in general sense. So these round 4 running backs are killing me. All right, over to round 5 here. We got a bunch of running backs I'm sure we have to talk about here. Let me just make sure. Oh, no, round 5's only got 3. All right, so round 3, we had a Jordan James go at 147 to the San Francisco 49ers, Jaden Blue to the Dallas Cowboys, and DJ Giddens over to the Indianapolis Colts. So, Coach Tyler, which of these guys do you like the best?
Jaden Blue, 100%. No questions about that. The Cowboys are one of those teams that, if Genty fell, they were going to go snatch him up. They were a team that definitely could have, traded back and gone after Hampton or even taken Hampton at 12. But that room looks really questionable right now. Let me make sure. Who is their back from this past season?
It was, Texas is back?
No, it was, oh my gosh. Anyways, he's not there anymore. But you look at this, backfield room, it's Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. I don't care that Jaden Blue has 5th round draft capital. Anywhere that I can safely get him at his value, I'm going to take him. He's a top 10 guy for me because, again, you look at just his ability and the way that he walks into that room, right? 6 foot, 200. He has production at the college level. He wasn't the lead back at Texas, but when he was, he made the most of his opportunities, right? 15 for 96 and a touchdown. 14 for 83. He has a lot of receiving work, lots of, 3, 4, 5, 6 reception games, 25 rushes for 124 yards and 3 touchdowns. When he gets the workload, he's able to do something out of it, or he's able to make something out of it. And I think that he has, we keep talking about the path. Obviously, Jordan James goes to the cursed place that is San Francisco for a running back. If Christian McCaffrey's healthy, he's not getting on the field. I don't care who you are. And DJ Giddens, right, he slots in behind Jonathan Taylor, who, again, has had his own health issues. But as long as Taylor's healthy, he's not getting anywhere near the top of that lineup. So Jaden Blue is really the one that I look at and say, this is the one guy that there's no alpha ahead of him, right? We want Javonte Williams to be an alpha. Hadn't been. Miles Sanders is Miles Sanders. I'll have to say more with that.
You don't.
So Jaden Blue's my guy here. He's a guy that I really like. I liked going through the process, and he just seems like a Dallas Cowboys running back. Like he fits the mold as well.
That's fair. Jamie has another thought on his recent trade that he did. So essentially, he traded away Bo Nixon 110 for Genty and Pollard in the 4-1. The trade that we said, let's go, let's run it. Then he said that he traded away Jalen McMillan the 210 and the 310 for Caleb Johnson.
I think you did a lot of good, and I think your running back room is stacked at this point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Your team is set up for another championship run, Jamie. I only have my legs to play with idiots. We also play with other analysts. Well, maybe we'll have to get into a league together, Jamie, because I have so many leagues, so maybe we'll have to come up with another league together. All right, so yeah, I like the pick there, Coach Tyler there. I won't say much more about Blue there. He's definitely a guy that's a third-round capital that, again, has tremendous upside. That
Rico Dowdle. That was the running back from this past season. Rico Dowdle.
Oh, Rico. Oh, yeah. Okay.
That tells you how forgettable that backfield has been and continues to be. We couldn't remember their 1,000-yard rusher from this season.
And he has Gibbs too. I forgot he has Gibbs. Damn, he is stacked at running back now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so like the other guys, like the round 3, 4, 5 guys are not that bad actually. They're nice, like sleeper gems. DJ Giddens. I think I liked him a lot coming out. I liked him a lot. Again, he's stuck behind Jonathan Taylor, but we know Jonathan Taylor's history with injuries. Jonathan Taylor isn't always a healthy running back. And we've seen running backs over the last few years, whether it was Zach Moss or Trey Sherman the last few years now, like getting time in. So Giddens is someone that late round 3, early round 4 is definitely a good priority to go out there and grab as depth piece. Jordan James, I wasn't overly high on him, but he's got some upside and he lands in a situation with the 49ers where they just kind of know how to make running backs work for them. And again, maybe a flyer after the draft, late round 4, might be willing to take that on because I think outside of Isaiah Guerrero, like there's really no one else in that backfield there that like is overly like won't stop him from being the RB3, maybe even the RB2 over Guerrero. So like Jordan James, Giddens, Jaden Blue, all great late round picks to go and take a shot on and see if one of them can kind of stand out over the other. Round 6, we got a couple more running backs. Some guys that actually, one guy that's going really early than a lot of these guys, but starting off with Ollie Gordon lands with the Miami Dolphins. Devin Neal lands with New Orleans Saints. Khalil Mullings lands with the Tennessee Titans. And Tajay Brooks, Coach Tyler's guy, lands with the Cincinnati Bengals here. So in round 6, Coach Tyler, how do you feel about these 4 running backs? Which one is your favorite to go after in rookie drafts?
Yeah. Putting my heart aside, I would have to say Devin Neal is my favorite to go after of all the running backs here. Obviously, y'all know my Texas Tech fandom. Love Taj Brooks. But, Devin Neal, again, we've talked about the Saints kind of being this question mark for next season, right? And the question mark really started after week 4, right? They had that 4-week stint where they looked like the best team in football and they were going to go undefeated and do all these crazy things. And then they came back down to earth. But, Alvin Kamara is still the starter. He's ancient, but he's still the starter. He's still going to get the run.
Understatement.
But you look at Kendre Miller is really the only guy ahead of him, right? And the Saints have been extremely frustrated with Kendre Miller, both in terms of production and actually being able to be on the field to produce.
Yes.
And so Devin Neal easily can walk into that number 2 spot. And like we've said, Alvin Kamara is not getting any younger. And so he's going to be very much able to miss time. The last full season that we've seen, I don't think we've seen a full season from Kamara. I don't know. Looking at this, he's never played
one or two full. 1 or 2 seasons he might have played full 16.
Yeah. There's probably a couple week 17, week 18 sit outs getting ready.
Especially in the more recent years.
But, most of Kamara's production for the offense has always been through the air. So they can run the ball with Kamara. He's not terrible. He's not outstanding. But Devin Neal was able to really be the workhorse for Kansas over the last few years. And he walks into a spot where he can at least, play a role as the 2, if not work in a lot of, first and second down work, and then they'll have Kamara do his thing, right? Like, I don't think he's going to take over that room this year by any stretch, but he could be their guy for the future. So Devin Neal, in terms of full fantasy, he's my top guy here. Obviously, love Taj Brooks. He's going to be on a lot of my taxi squads just because I don't want anyone else to have him in case he actually does pop.
That's fair. Yeah, and Neal is definitely he's going right now as like a late round 2, early round 3. I think that to me is still a little high for a guy that was drafted in the 6th round. I would love to see his value kind of drop a little bit, but obviously people are very high on him because of the situation in New Orleans. We don't really know who's the backup there, and the Saints really need to get someone else in there to help Alvin Kamara out, at least to keep the pressure off him. And hopefully Neal could be that guy for them. Ollie Gordon for the Dolphins. Again, he's a bigger back, kind of probably likely battle with Jalen Wright for that Raheem Mostert role in the Dolphins offense there. Gordon has shown us potential in his younger days, and we're kind of looking for that to kind of bounce back. Hopefully he can do that in the NFL. Mullins is kind of just a bulldozer kind of running back. Not sure how much of a role with the Tennessee Titans is anything more than an RB3 on the team. But we've seen Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard both get banged up in their career, so Mullins might have an opening. And Tajay Brooks, like Coach Tyler said, he's got a tremendous upside in his passing game there, which could help kind of relieve Chase Brown from having to be overworked. And depending on what they do with Zach Moss, but again, a lot of these guys outside of Neal are going to be going late. Like they're probably going to be round 4 to undrafted players who, again, this running back class we said was deep. They have some players there that they can work with. And then the last one's here, round 7 and undrafted. Damian Martinez goes in round 7, even though it says 157, but round 7 to the Seattle Seahawks. Brashard Smith goes to the Chiefs. Kyle Magongle goes to the Chicago Bears. LaQuinton Allen goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Phil Mehaff goes to the Dallas Cowboys. Ja'Cory Cocky Merritt, saying that completely wrong, heads to the Washington Commanders. And then in the back of an undrafted, Raheem Sanders heads to the Los Angeles Chargers. Donovan Edwards to the New York Jets. Corey Kiner goes to the 49ers. And Marcus Yaron goes to the Saints as well. Any one of these guys you want to briefly mention real quickly before we move over to the tight ends that might have some value for you?
A little bit. Brashard Smith definitely intrigues me. I liked Damian Martinez in the pre-draft process, but going to Seattle, he's just buried on a depth chart, so I don't see a ton of work for him. But, Brashard Smith, I know a lot of the fantasy community has them as their, quote, sleeper. He's a converted receiver. Obviously, we know what that Kansas City receiving room has looked like, and we know that Pacheco is not the most outstanding in the passing game. So I think Brashard Smith has the ability to work himself into a role. I don't know how much that role is going to be because he's a 7th-round pick, but also I would never count any utility player out with Andy Reid. LaQuint Allen, he was a guy that I said would be a great 3rd-down back going into draft season. Obviously, by drafting Tootin, the Jags didn't necessarily need him. He could still find a way to get 3rd-down work, but I feel like that would have been the best way to utilize him in the league. But we'll see what he turns into. He may just be a return guy or something for them. But that's really all I got on those.
Yeah, that's really not great. Martinez is probably a late to undrafted player. Again, he might have a future value if Ken Walker is in the last year of his contract. Everyone's kind of some people starting to talk of Kyle Magongue, thank you. Because the Bears were looking at Genty, but I don't see it still. I wasn't really high on the Rutgers guy. You kind of mentioned Allen and Smith that were decent options there that I also kind of liked. It's really it. I mean, I was kind of high on Corey Kinder, so him going to 49ers could be interesting. But again, none of these guys are really worth drafting in your rookie drafts. They're like after picks, and if you have an extra spot or 2 in your rookie draft, I'd put some running backs on there because this class is, like I said, deep, and one of these guys could end eventually hit for us in fantasy in the future. So, all right, over to tight ends now. Starting out here at the top, we had 2 tight ends drafted in round 1. Colston Loveland at pick 10 and pick 14, Tyler Warren goes to the Colts, Colston Loveland to the Bears. Coach Tyler, which one is the guy to own between Loveland and Warren?
See, I'm someone that had Loveland as tight end 1 going into the draft, as a lot of people did. He proved that he was the tight end 1 by getting the number 10 overall pick. But if I'm looking at it in all honesty, I feel like Tyler Warren is the guy to have, just because Loveland falls into the jumbled mess that is trying to get a target in that Bears offense, right? You look at the Bears offense as a whole, and we already talked about Luther Burden, right? You've got DeAndre Swift, who's a really receiving heavy back coming out of the backfield. You've got DJ Moore. You've got Roma Dunze, who they drafted last year. Got Luther Burden. There's still Cole Kmet there for at least another year. And you have Colston Loveland. This is the first, pick that Brad Johnson made as head coach of the Bears. But it still makes it hard for me to see the pathway to being a consistent workload guy at the tight end position, not only fighting competition at his own position with Cole Kmet, but also the rest of the offense trying to get touches, right? If you go look at the Colts offense, obviously we know about their quarterback situation, but you've got Jonathan Taylor, and then you had Michael Pittman Jr. He's kind of fallen off, obviously, with the lower quarterback play. You have a couple long touchdowns from Alec Pierce. You have Josh Downs whenever a quarterback can actually hit him. But there's not a ton on that offense that's overly solidified outside of Jonathan Taylor. And he doesn't get a ton of work in the passing game. And so I think if I look at it from a, 10,000-foot lens, obviously we look at Loveland got the higher draft capital. Loveland's going to a better team with a better quarterback. That's the guy that we should want, right? But we look at the Colts. They've committed to putting Anthony Richardson in a competition this offseason, right? He's going through competition in camp with Daniel Jones and possibly even now Riley Leonard, who long shot throw, he could be the week 1 starter. I think his accuracy numbers show that that's kind of what Shane Steichen would want to work with. But the Colts aren't investing their entire future in Anthony Richardson anymore. They recognize that he hasn't progressed at the way that he needs to, or at the rate that he needs to. So there's a chance that the Colts aren't outstanding this next year, and they go out in the draft and they get someone. There's a chance that the Colts aren't outstanding, and they go spend a ton of money in free agency to go bring in a good quarterback. So if we're looking at, year 1, obviously target share, I feel like Tyler Warren has the larger target share, but full scope, I feel like Tyler Warren has the least amount of competition in that offense because the only real established piece is a running back that barely gets any play through the air.
That's fair. Sure. Yeah, I mean, I am also a guy who was always high on Tyler Warren. He was my tight end 1 in this class year. I kind of expected him to go to the Colts. It just seemed like a perfect situation for the Colts to get a tight end who has the ability to block and also pass catch, and that's what Tyler Warren can do for a team. He's a big physical guy here. And he's a guy who's going in that mid to late round 1 place in a lot of rookie drafts so far. And while Colston might have been drafted higher, again, he was a really good tight end too. I really liked him as well. But kind of like Coach Tyler said, he's going in a situation where, yes, we saw Ben Johnson have success with tight ends, but is he going to be just a tight end? I heard he could play into the slot at times, maybe, or something like that. But they also drafted Luther Burden. So what kind of role is Loveland going to have with Cole Kmet on the team? I know Cole Kmet may not be the best fantasy tight end, but he's a decent tight end still. And they paid him a decent amount of money to be there, unless he gets moved this offseason. But Loveland is a guy, I think he's a better back end of the first tight end, while Warren is a guy I prefer over him long term, because I think whether or not Anthony Richardson, who Jamie just said here, is working with Josh Allen on his accuracy, you don't know what's going to happen, and maybe the Colts find a new quarterback, which would then utilize Warren to his full potential. Over to round 2 here, we have Mason Taylor going to the New York Jets. Very upset about that. Terrence Ferguson, I think this one might kind of a surprise to some people, going to Los Angeles Rams, and Elijah Arroyo heading over to the Seattle Seahawks. Coach Charlotte, which of these tight ends do you like?
Honestly, I like Mason Taylor the most. I have him ranked above the other two that are right here. Again, we talk about just target opportunity. He's going to the Jets where, there's no more Devontae Adams. Breece Hall is going to be there, and he's probably going to get a lot of checkdowns. But also, they just signed a quarterback that doesn't like to check the ball down. And if we go back to what Justin Fields did with the Bears, he targeted Cole Kmet a ton. And Mason Taylor is, one of the most pro-ready tight ends to come out of this draft. And so I feel like going into a spot where you're really – if we see that Justin Fields hasn't matured in terms of checking the ball down to a running back, he's competing with Garrett Wilson, and that's about it for targets. So I like Taylor a lot. I know a lot of people are high on Terrence Ferguson, mostly because he's with the Rams. And you just trust Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford above the other two quarterbacks here. But I have it ranked exactly how it shows up on our board, exactly how they were drafted. I loved Taylor in the pre-draft process, and while the Jets isn't the sexiest landing spot, he's got no one but Garrett Wilson to really compete with. And Justin Fields, if we look back at his time with Cole Kmet, loves to throw it to the tight end. So I could see a pathway for him to be, a lower end tight end 1 in your tight end premium leagues if he's targeted as heavy as he could be.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people expected these tight ends, some of them at least, to go into – I always felt like the tight ends never end up in a situation I was truly in love with. Like, that's how I felt. Like, Mason Taylor, I like him in New York. I think he's going to be the starter there as early as week 1. Will it be – it's going to be with Justin Fields, and Justin Fields, we know, isn't the most proficient passer in the league there, even though we've seen improvement out of him. But Mason Taylor, for me, is still my third tight end off the board here. He's kind of going right now in a lot of rookie drafts, mid to late round 2, and as he should. He's got a tremendous talent that he should be a guy who's able to block and go out there and catch the ball really well. And again, the Jets don't really have a number 2 guy outside if you count the running backs. They don't really have a second pass catcher, so Mason could easily fill in as the number 2 on this team here, even as a rookie here, and that's kind of why I like him. Elijah Arroyo is someone I like next in terms of that. I think the skill set he offers to do a lot more than just be a normal tight end, more of a hybrid player, is intriguing. They've talked about him running a very expanded route tree so far already in Seattle, that they plan on working on something like that with him, which could be really interesting there. And then, again, round 2 draft capital is really good. I know they have Noah Fant there, but Noah Fant's kind of out-welcomed himself there in Seattle at this point. He's just been a guy, nothing more than that, unfortunately. Royal is really going to like a 3rd-round pick right now. And same with Terrence Ferguson. I like Ferguson as well, too. He's kind of my 3rd guy on this list. I still like him, though, a lot. He's more, I think, of a year 2 player. Someone like a Tyler Higbee came back last year and did well. It was fine. And I expect him to be back again this year as this team tries to make one last run for the championship. And I think Terrence Ferguson sees more of a year 2 value than a year 1. So you're drafting him in round 3 is a better value long-term than trying to force yourself to get him in like late round 2 or anything like that. Moving on here, round 3, we just had one guy go in Harold Fanning Jr. to the Cleveland Browns. Round 4, we had Gunnar Helms go to the Tennessee Titans. And I'm just trying to see if there was we'll do a couple more here, a couple more rounds altogether here. Round 5, Mitchell Evans went to the Carolina Panthers. Orondo Gladstone goes to the Los Angeles Chargers. Jackson Hayes goes also in round 5 to the Buffalo Bills. And Robbie Orts goes to Seattle as well in round 5. So out of these last 3 rounds here, Coach Tyler, who really sticks out to you as someone that you're looking to target or may target?
I really like I like those 2 right there in the middle, Gunnar Helm, Mitchell Evans. Harold Fannin, won best tight end in the nation this year, but he goes to the Browns where he's going to be stuck behind Njoku. Don't absolutely love that because Njoku is able to show out, especially as a receiver. And so I don't doubt that Harold Fannin gets on the field. I just doubt that he gets the bulk of the run there at tight end. But Gunnar Helm and Mitchell Evans both walk into fairly nice spots for themselves, right? The Titans, again, loading up around Cam Ward. The Titans have Chig Okonkwo, but he's never really blossomed into, at least for fantasy purposes, what everyone thought that he would become.
No.
And Gunnar Helm was a successful receiving tight end at the University of Texas. And Mitchell Evans, he's not a first or second round pick, but he was a great Notre Dame tight end. Good ability in the passing game, a very capable blocker. And he goes into a depth chart with Tommy Trimble and a guy that didn't necessarily pan out last year, rookie Jatavian Sanders. And so I assume that at least one of those guys is somewhat getting their job taken, or the Panthers wouldn't have drafted Mitchell Evans at all. But I think that Evans is, a very well-rounded tight end. And so being able to give Bryce Young another weapon, another guy that can work underneath and just provide easy pitch and catch for Bryce Young, I love it. And so I think the Gunnar Helm and Mitchell Evans, of the guys that we see here, those are my 2 that I would target. I'm not targeting them super high, but if I had to pick one, that's where I'm going right there.
Absolutely. Looking at ADP, a lot of these guys, I mean, Fannin is going in round 4. Trying to look at Gunnar Helms, late round 3. I haven't seen Mitchell go off the board yet anywhere. I mean, I like Orlando Gladstone, former wide receiver turned tight end. A bit raw of a prospect, but there's a lot of upside in his passing catching skills and landing with the Chargers for a year. I mean, we expected the Chargers to go out for a tight end in this draft here, and they didn't. They chose to stick with Tyler Conklin for the year, but Gladden's has a football career in him. His dad used to be a wide receiver in the league. He could end up blossoming. It might not be year 1, obviously, because he's still really raw as a prospect, but year 2, year 3, if he can get groomed the right way, I mean, him going in the late round 4 pick to undrafted pickup, there's potential for him to be a really solid gem for any dynasty owner right now. They're looking for a player. So, right. And then I think there's not much left here. Round 6, we had Gavin Bartolome go to the Minnesota Vikings. Thomas Fedone go to the New York Giants. Caleb Lohner going to the Denver Broncos. You want to help me out here, Coach Tyler?
The Saints player?
Saints player, yeah.
Moliki Mataveo.
Thank you. Goes to the New Orleans Saints in round 7. Luke Leahy goes to the Houston Texans in round 7. And a couple undrafted guys. Jalen Converse, one of Coach Tyler's guys, heads to the Miami Dolphins. And Jake Bringstool, guy I really like pre-draft, heads to the Kansas City Chiefs here. So, to round us up for the night here, Coach Tyler, any of these late tight ends interest you at all?
Not playing the homer pick, Lachey. I think it's Lachey.
Probably.
I don't know how to say it. That's how much I paid attention to the 7th round. But the Texans have kind of been looking for, I don't want to say an answer, but somewhat of an answer in the tight end department, right? They have Dalton Schultz, but he hasn't been everything he was cracked up to be. And the Texans were even a team that early round 2, round 3 were being talked about as possibly grabbing a tight end. And so, the need is there. Obviously, they have Brevin Jordan, which if you have watched any Texans football, he's liable. I'll tell you, once a season, he is going to score like a 50-yard crazy touchdown. But that's about all you're getting out of him. And then the Texans went and drafted Cade Stover last year, reunited him with CJ. He didn't do a ton this year. He wasn't terrible. But, he goes into a loaded room, but also they cared to make a pick here and take a tight end above anyone. So I like Lachey, Lackey, whatever you want to call him. I like Conyers, partially just a homer pick, partially because he is a, very athletic tight end, goes to Miami, and is able to line up aside Jonnu Smith, go make some plays there. Brenningstool, Kelsey's going to retire once. Or he's going to retire at some point. So one of these tight ends is liable to take over. He could be the guy to take over. But really, it's just a grab bag of which one of these guys you think might make it out and do something in fantasy. But when you're talking about the, 10-plus ranked guy in the class, there's not too much you can really trust in terms of guessing.
I agree with Jamie, though. I'm stashing Cade Stover for another year. I like him a lot. That's how I feel about Cade Stover.
Yeah, I like Stove. There's a lot of tight ends and not a lot of answers. So someone's got to step up soon.
That's fair. And Shiloh, Sanders' brother, heads to the Bucs, just for you, Jamie. But again, I'm not overly excited about a lot of these late round tight ends. I was kind of high on Thomas Fedone. I think he was just a kind of well-rounded tight end. Heads to the Giants here. I know that Theo Johnson is there. But again, I'm not overly convinced Theo Johnson's going to be this elite player. He's got elite traits. But Fedone is someone I think is just a good, well-rounded individual that could end up finding himself a role with the Giants. Again, they had Daniel Bellinger, who they really just did not pan out for that team there. But yeah, that's really it for tight ends. Again, there are some high upside ones. Again, a lot of these guys, I wouldn't be surprised if you see 2 or 3 of these guys in the last few slides that we had for the night end up being relevant for fantasy. Again, this was a deep tight end class as well. Like I said, we talked about with the running backs. And that's really it for us when it comes to the NFL draft, guys. So we hope you guys enjoyed it. Breaking down these 2 teams. If you want, if you're listening now on just our running backs and tight ends, go back and check out a quarterbacks and wide receiver episode. We did that one already. That one's already done out there. Anything, Coach Tyler, you want to say before we wrap up for the night?
Yeah, guys. If you didn't watch the other episode, you're going to hear the same ending from me. Go check out dynastynerds.com. That's how me and Coach Steve got connected. It's where we watched all of our film to get everything ready for draft season, pre and post draft. And, there's so many great articles, so many great tools over there. The Dynasty GM has been helping me out a ton as I'm making trades, trying to value out my draft picks and what players they should be traded for, what picks I should be taking, looking at all those mock drafts and everything. So go check out dynastynerds.com. Use code COACH when you get over there. Let them know that we sent you, and thank you all for checking us out.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. And we appreciate you guys for listening and tuning in, guys, whether it's live on our YouTube channel at the Fantasy Coaches. Again, we put a great slideshow on for you guys to view it instead of us just hearing us talk, for sure. What did Jamie said here? Rooting for the Kenyan players. They're such nice attitudes. And then Nerd Herd. Hell yeah. Or if you're listening live on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you listen to your podcast, we appreciate you guys as well, too. Like I said, we don't get paid to do this. We do this for the kindness of our hearts, guys, to give you guys quality fantasy content so you guys can win your off seasons, whether it's Dynasty or when we get to redraft season here. Just trying to help you guys win some championships. So we'll be back next Monday. We're going to be talking mock draft. Maybe we'll talk about some veterans who are affected by the NFL draft a little bit too. And then we'll wrap up the rookie draft dynasty offseason. And then, we'll talk more about that next week. But we thank you all for listening and tuning in. And thank you all for who tuned in the chat today, Jamie, especially you. Appreciate you again to my friend. And we will see you guys all next week. Same time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday, guys. So